The first and only time I ever milked a cow, I felt like a champion. I was a kid visiting the Maps farm, family friends of my grandfather. 3 generations of farmers worked that land, and I swear half of them were in the barn smiling as I stuck my hand under that cow and wasn't sure what I was holding on to. When I saw that stream and heard the milk hit the silver pail and the look in my dad's eye, I just felt just magical. Everything was so different on that farm because I was a city boy. But what stayed with me wasn't just the smell of the barn or the sting of the early morning air. It was pride. Pride in purpose, pride in growing something that matters. Earlier this year, I had the honor of delivering a keynote and moderating a panel at Farm Credit Canada's annual food conference. If you haven't heard of Farm Credit Canada, I encourage you to look them up. I'll even put their link in the podcast notes, and feel very proud that they're 100% invested in Canadian agriculture. The theme of their conference was the future of food, and 700 people filled the room. Farmers, producers, processors, innovators, manufacturers, leaders, every link in the chain from seed to plate, from farm to fork was there. What I shared with them is what I'm going to share with you today. Food is everything. Fuels our bodies, gives us energy, creates conversation, connects cultures, anchors our economy. But it's also governed by forces far beyond what most of us see. Mother Nature's moods, global commodity pricing, supply chain issues, tight margins at retail, even the high cost of simply getting your product on the grocery shelf. I've spent a career working with food brands, packaged good, quick service restaurants. I even judged hopeful recipes on a national television show called Recipe to Riches. But it was that first splash of milk that taught me something we too often forget. Food is work, food is worth, and food is wonder. And here's an insight that matters now more than ever. At a time when our country's facing such headwinds, when we're too reliant on one economy as our trading partner, Canada can become a food superpower, not just by growing it, but by adding value every step of the way. From branding to innovation to processing to sustainability, transportation affordability, nutrition, there's so many I's to dot and so many T's to cross. Who wouldn't want Canadian food grown under our fresh air, with our fresh water and our young soil? But I want to go beyond just commodities. I want us to become thought leaders. What food should we be eating as we age to improve our cognitive abilities? What should we be feeding our kids so that their minds firing on all cylinders when they're being taught? How about inflammation or joints? How about our mobility? How about the ability to prevent diseases so we take immediate and immense pressure off our healthcare system? For the world dealing with food scarcity and food insecurity and food efficacy, why can't we be the partner they rely on? If we get this right, we don't just feed ourselves, we feed the world. We don't just create jobs, we create purpose. We don't just grow crops, we grow hope. So this week, we talk about Canadian food, its future, its fragility, and its power to unite us around something we all share: a plate, a planet, and a promise. And now it's time to join up with Farm Credit Canada's Future Food Conference, where I introduce my esteemed panel. I'd like to now call on Kristjan Hebert to come up, the Hebert Group, Curt Vossen to come up, from former CEO of Richardson's. And I'm going to just start by having a couple one-on-one conversations, and we'll do it more of a group. And Curt, I'll start with you. As you retire, 25 years quarterbacking the Richardson's Group, the largest independent ag, exporting to 60 countries and stuff. Do you take time this early on to reflect on what's on your highlight wheel and things that you wish you had accomplished, but for some reason couldn't?
I don't think I've been wallowing in retrospection since I retired. I think all the way through has been a process of reevaluation.
How do you want to be remembered in the sense of what you accomplished, not only on your watch for your company, but potentially being one of the trailblazers that said, hey, we can get to 60 markets as a country. We don't always have to be dependent on one.
There's a legacy issue, right? And the legacy issue is we were gifted. If you're not aware of it, the Richardson Corporation began in agriculture in 1857 in Kingston, Ontario, doing basically what we're still doing today, which is trading grains and Canadian produced agricultural products into a domestic and an international market. I came in at year 138. So there was a certain element of understanding that I had a responsibility to a multi-generational Canadian iconic company that had various challenges and opportunities over the years, but had survived for 138 years. So that's a big responsibility for myself and my team. And so at that point in time, the company had a watershed moment, and that was we had assets that were older assets. We had 172 of the iconic but not efficient elevators that used to grace the Canadian prairies. We had a small boutique inputs business selling producers retail products. And other than that, a few small distractive businesses that had no materiality. We had to decide where were we going to be over the course of the next generation? How could we pass this multi-generation company on to the next generation? So there was an imperative on the horizon, and the imperative was one of logistical efficiency, pushed by the railways, saying you're going to have to do a lot better than you've done in the past in terms of being able to move our rolling stock through your facilities efficiently and effectively. We don't want to spot 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. We want to spot 50 cars, eventually 100 cars. And you can't do it with the facilities that you've got. So are you prepared to make the investment? Are you prepared to take the risk of recapitalizing a business that had not seen this magnitude of capitalization in decades? And that was a necessity, right?
So how do you do that? I have an emotional attachment to the old way of doing business. You got a family history. You're going to knock on doors looking for capital when with the Richardson Group, there's got to be many different places where that capital could flow. How do you convince people that to go after the future in a big way versus dance around the present?
Arguing clearly and repeatedly about the necessity, about the reality, about the facts. We can talk in high-minded objectives, but you've got to start with how do you get the first step? How do you get the first foot in front of the other, and then the next, and the next? And what are the implications of that? And is it doable? Is it sustainable? Is it worthwhile? Is it material? Where do we really want to be? So you lay out a blank piece of paper and you say, is it good enough to compete with the existing competitive environment that we're in? In those days, 1995, 1996, the market in Western Canada in terms of grain handling and transportation was dominated by producer-owned cooperatives, Saskatchewan Wheat Pool, Alberta Wheat Pool, Manpool Elevators, United Grain Growers. And that changed. And we had to see that was going to change. The wheat board, very material element in the economy of Western Canadian agriculture. Is it going to be there forever?
We've got a lot of sacred cows in this country. You're the CEO, it's a private enterprise. You're talking about, at times, it felt like moving the Titanic. What advice can you give to this audience? How do you get people that you saying take your first step forward, but 3 people are trying to hold on to that leg and not move it?
You try and apply critical thinking to what seems to be a logical way forward. Am I going to be competing in a world 25 years from now that will feature me as a service provider to an entity called the Canadian Wheat Board? Am I going to be competing against the people that I'm competing with today? What are the other possibilities in terms of who I will compete against? And what do they have as assets, as opportunities, as strengths, as capabilities that maybe I should consider applying to my own business? So we were a fob seller in large part. Why? I think the Canadian grain industry got lazy. We were a hewer of wood and a hauler of water because most of the export business was being done through the Canadian Wheat Board. We would buy the grain, we would bin the grain, we would ship the grain, we would load the vessels at port position, and someone else would market the grain. But that's not what our competitors globally were doing. They were marketing the grain. They weren't necessarily transactional salespeople. They were relationship salespeople. They knew their markets. They understood the complexities. They understood the risk profiles, all of which carry an inherent risk profile. We're doing business today, Richardson, in 60, 70 different jurisdictions in the world. Many of those would be reasonably called second and third world economies, emerging economies. And one of the features that pops up on more than one occasion is rule of law is notional. So you've got to have certain characteristics, certain capabilities, certain disciplines to be able to operate effectively in those markets. And if you don't understand that, don't get into it.
Kristjan, I want to go to you, and I'd watch an interview where you talk about You had to go off to become a CPA because that farm wasn't big enough for you. And then you came back and I think you got 40,000 acres. So you've certainly made a farm big enough for you, but your horizons are much bigger than farming. Tell me a little bit about your journey and how that all unfolded, that you felt the cards you were dealt, you needed to change the game that was going to be played.
I mean, I think everyone in your life has kind of critical moments or stories that allow you to pivot. I mean, I can remember 10 years old, my dad telling me he had to quit coaching hockey because he created a monster. We were a couple thousand acres, but he didn't enjoy people. He enjoyed farming. So for me, the farm was a place that I could work lots of hours. My dad paid me good. I could take my girlfriend to the keg instead of McDonald's, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. I was going to take a med degree, wrote the MCAT, said, what am I doing? I was going to go into agronomy. And my dad said, you want to know what? I can teach you how to farm if you want to farm, but take business, because if you do decide to come back, that's the part that's tough and it's moving fast. It was actually my time with Mars North Penny looking at statements of hundreds of thousands of farms and large companies and audits that I learned that I really love business. That drove me back to agriculture because of the opportunities in it. I came home thinking growth is good because the only way I can have more people is to grow. And I don't think most people's job description should be, you're going to do what I tell you to do when you get here in the morning. They want to do what they're good at most of the time. So
you're a business person. You're talking about growth. You're talking about acquisitions. You're looking at balance sheets all the time. You're coaching other farmers in terms of how their business is doing business. Do you think that part of the mindset that's hurting us is when you reach for that rung, you're considered a little above yourself?
In a business like agriculture on a global basis, scale is everything. Efficiency, predictability, profitability, continuity. It's all about being able to be material to your customer on either side of the equation, either the buy side or the sell side. You've got to be willing to help them do better than they're doing today. If you're not providing a service.
I get that both of you get it in terms of just by your portfolio and what you've accomplished, but the narrative in the country at times is that's not how we want you to swim. Is that not a mindset that's holding us back?
I believe in the opportunity agriculture. You ask me if I'm going to grow, 100%. I believe in it. But one thing we have to change as Canadians is we're too goddamn humble. You want to talk about Americans? They won't even throw out their college t-shirt. They believe in what they believe in to the point that sometimes they're arrogant. But you have to be crazy to be an entrepreneur. I'm sorry. You do. Our biggest success story of humbleness is that we built Tim Hortons so that we could go for coffee to make bets on who we hope to see fail next. Not to go visit about success and that we're proud of it and that, companies like Richardson's or P&H, or there's hundreds of them, success stories in Canada that we should be proud of. Scale is good. We want to win. One issue with our industry right now is that we're like our World Junior Hockey program. We used to be good. We have all the right assets, but we're losing. And if you lose, you're not that good. Don't get me wrong. Being humble is great, but Curt and I are no different. We love to win. So when we leave a place like this today, what are we going to execute on? What are we going to do? When we come here next year, 365 days, if these 5 things aren't done, we didn't just get the silver medal, we're lost out of the tournament.
Where do you think that has to, I talked to you about journeys, and to me, that narrative and mindset has to travel like a water with no dead ends. It has to happen in the public sector, it has to the private sector, academia. Where do you think it's getting blocked? That sense, because as individuals, we love to win. We love to see our kids win. Look what we have as an asset. We should be dominating the world, not allowing us to slip by. Where does it have to change? So 365 days from now, we're sitting on this stage and we're going, you know what? We accomplished a lot in a very short order.
We've got to separate hubris from reality. And there's something fine to be understood about incrementality. Never mind getting 100 billion. Let's start at 20 or 25 or 15 or 5 or 10. Let's move ourselves ahead and ask ourselves the question, what does it take to do that? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? Who is going to stand in our way in terms of competitive realities because they have the same objectives? And for us to say, let's be the best in the world, well, that's aspirational. That's great. But tell me how. I'd rather be growing steadily. I would like to be finding a place that is representative of where our positioning should be, our market share should be, our sustainability should be. And I start with economic sustainability. If you're not economically sustainable, if Richardson didn't make money doing what it did, and it made repeated mistakes in executing its business, I wouldn't be up here and we wouldn't be talking right now. Get real. This is a tough market. Everybody's got the same objective. It's like those hockey teams in the NHL. They all want to win the Stanley Cup. They're not going to let you walk through. So you've got to figure out a plan. It's got to be a rational plan. It's got to be a manageable plan. It's got to be a plan that's within your reach to move incrementally ahead.
So why do some countries figure it out and others don't?
Because you keep fooling yourself with dialogue or platitudes that really don't ask the question, what do we have to do to be successful?
What is that? Let's keep your analogy of junior hockey. What do we need to do as a country to move forward so that we can get back to becoming that kind of competitor?
I don't think as a country it's any different than a business model. And I got a pretty simple business model. If you want a good business, focus on time, brains, and money. And you can break that up. So hockey team country, time is somebody actually has to go to work and do it. Point number one, I can't go green if I'm in the red. The definition of sustainability is I need to leave my financial statements, my land, my community, and my industry in a better state for my children, or I failed. Brains, the whole focus is people. So if you want to run a country, you want to run a business, you want to run a hockey team, pick the right people. And I would say in a whole bunch of areas right now, we're picking people that drink the right Kool-Aid, not people that are really good at what they do. Whether that's the World Junior Hockey Team, they fit the politics. Let's pick the best people. Pick the winners. We have a lot of great entrepreneurs in Canada. And I would say right now, they feel like there's a whole bunch of weights holding them down. And they just said, piss on it. I'm going to do it myself. I'm not waiting. When in fact, if you want to encourage collaboration, that group got there by collaborating. They got there through their network and knowing other people and finding ways to get money. They're the best collaborators in the world. But I don't think we've went to all of our entrepreneurs and said, what can we do for you? What can you do for us? What are the 3 things that piss you off to fix? And then actually make a list and go do it.
Curt, as you look at this 3-dimensional chess game, is it a game that's going to be won by individual entrepreneurs pushing forward regardless of the circumstances? Or is it going to have to be a much more collective effort that says as a country, we need to be reducing pain points and friction points to allow entrepreneurs to thrive?
Well, I think you got to be cognizant of your lane. What can you do? When can you do it? How can you do it? Who's the most effective to do it? Certain things like national infrastructure is certainly a worthwhile collaboration with government, with industry, with the farm community, et cetera, to figure out what are the bottlenecks and what's preventing us from eliminating those bottlenecks or certainly de-bottlenecking them. Those conversations have to be had, but we still have to see action on some of these things. And some of them are pretty fundamental, pretty basic. You can see where the bottlenecks are in terms of reliability of supply to our international marketplace. We talk about customers like they're an inanimate object. Consumers within those jurisdictions, all of whom have opinions, needs, all of whom have ways of doing things that we have to recognize and be understanding of. And so what do? You go and listen. You ask questions, take direction.
Do we do that as a nation as well, that we're bringing back to the industry? Here's the unmet needs of Japan. Here's what the consumers are looking for. Here's where the opportunities are. Or is it done by a business?
I think we're too introspective, right? I think we think the solutions are homegrown. The solutions are not homegrown because it leaves out the critical point of need on the part of your counterparty, the counterparty to the transaction, whatever that transaction may happen to be. When you're trading agricultural products, food products, any kind of products on an international basis, there's the first 3 critical items: price, price, and price. And after that, you get into what is the quality that is representative of that price. And the third thing you get into is what is your ability to be a valued supplier, which means predictability, consistency. And that's the conversation. They can like Canadians, but if Canadians can't deliver for them to meet their objectives, they have objectives, they have ambitions. And in many cases where we're doing business, these customers have less capability, less of those things than we do. You folks in Algeria, I mean, surely you're concerned about my carbon footprint. Well, not at the cost of a price increase.
Kristjan, to put this to you, so can we institutionalize this knowledge on behalf of agriculture in Canada so that we are all responding to what we think these need states are, what the price point is, what's the efficiency, reliability, at least these metrics, can they be collective metrics that we drive change out of, or is it continuing to be just the entrepreneurs that are very successful where we're going to see this opportunity be realized?
Number one, if you're using hockey, the government's job is build the rink, be the ref, get the hell out of the way. So when Team Canada is playing in Canada or in the US, is it a bunch of government employees that have the Canadian jersey on? No, it's all our businesses. So when Curt was in whatever country selling wheat, he didn't talk about Richardson wheat. He talked about Canadian wheat. He was playing under the same rules that every other grain company was playing under, and he was selling my wheat. But the rules were there. This is how you trade grain around the rules. Make the rules the same everywhere. Let the players play. But magically, when the players are playing the game, specifically if scale is good and we have global players, they turn into automatic ambassadors. Government isn't out doing the ambassador work. Him and his team were in every 60 countries in the world talking about why Canadian wheat was the best and why you should pay this. And at the same time, what that allows to happen, and I think we don't always look at this right in Canada, for the last decade, we've been fighting over everybody's little piece of the pie. Well, what about if we want 10 goddamn pies instead of one? Let's use the ambassadors. Let's use these best companies to drive the pie, to mentor the young ones to come up. But let's not have the goal of just one pie.
Given that we're going on a metaphor, so I'll now talk about instead of a hockey rink, you need an oven to bake the pie. What is the role of government? What would you like to see change so that they're creating the conditions that allow our Canadian ambassadors to succeed?
I think having government as a partner, particularly in foreign jurisdictions, is very helpful, particularly to diffuse the implications of geopolitics, trade barriers, phytosanitary, food quality, non-tariff barriers. We need the government to understand that we are continuing. We have a supply chain. How can you help us, whether it's infrastructure or it's labor policy or whatever it may happen to be? How can you help us make sure that that supply chain that is so critical to our success, how do you help us make that efficient, resilient, flexible when we have such impediments? What do I mean by that? I mean geography and I mean climate. We produce a lot of what we produce in agriculture a long way away from where it's exported. You've got to deal with those things. How do you deal with them effectively?
A government's got a fixed budget. What would you take away that they're doing now, and where would you invest that money?
First of all, get to a point that the government just does what they say they're going to do. Then second points, I mean, I heard a good line this morning. I think we're all ready for radical change, but we're not ready for vindictive change. And you think about that, specifically what's going on in the US right now, but in lots of countries, new government comes in or there's a change and they actually just make change because the last party or the last whatever pissed them off. Everybody in this room has to work with every party. I want Canada to be awesome forever. Just do what you say you're going to do. And let's quit talking about some of these problems. So the long-term infrastructure is a government problem.
Can democracy as it stands today, which is this fixation of winning the next term, can it align with 25-year horizons? Can it align with, I don't care whose constituencies out there, we need that railway, we need that infrastructure fixed?
If the initiative is well thought through, if it is well explained, I think people are generally receptive of good ideas that have a vision, because a lot of those people have children or they have grandchildren and they say, oh, yeah, but for them, we want it even better, right? We just need leadership with the courage to do it.
You know, what you're talking about is a horizon of my children, my grandchildren, setting yourself up for success long term. But it never really seems to become policy. Is that kind of thinking and storytelling and igniting Canadians? Where should that lie?
The number one piece to leave with, stories are stories. What are we going to do about it? We didn't tell a story for 50 years that Canada was good at hockey and people just believed us. No, we won. So how do we do that in business? Part of it, sure, we need to have the moonshot, right? So We produce 50 million ton right now. We want to get to 70 or 100 or whatever that number is. Set it out there. But I think we're going to go from 50 to 70 just over the next 10 years through scale.
Who's responsible for getting Canadians to go, I like the fact my tax and borrowed dollars are going to go for the infrastructure we need to set ourselves up so we can sell 10 pies?
There's no question, I don't think, when you talk to the general public, that food and agriculture is important. The best way to be sustainable is to be able to ship more of our sustainable stuff around the world. I'm not saying that we shouldn't tell the world that we have the lowest emission product in the globe. If that's what the world wants, damn right, we should tell them.
Because it is.
Because it is. And then on top of that, we'll say, and you want to know what? We're fixing our tunnel, we're fixing our ports. So in 36 months, we can ship you double. You got the checkbook ready?
Some of the solutions are so simple. We have an issue, and that is most of the grains and oilseeds that we export out of Canada, as well as a number of other products. The biggest port, without any comparison in Canada, is Vancouver. What does it do in Vancouver over 200 days of the year? It rains. I can't load vessels when it rains. This is 2025. We can't figure out technology that is easy to put in place and easy to take down and not impede our ability to move vessels out of that port in an efficient way. It's a labor issue, and we can't resolve a labor issue. It is holding this country back, and it's reputational damage, right?
We all want this moonshot. I mean, what do we need as an organization, as an entity called Canada, that says these are top priorities?
Think about this for a second. How old's the Sky Dome? 50 years? Mm-hmm. So a baseball owner in a city figured out how to watch ball in the rain, but we can't figure out how to load a ship in the rain. We valued watching ball more than our country's success. Every day when we get up, I say that my goal is to build something to give my kids the opportunity to go to Harvard and cool enough they might come back to. Do we want to build a country that our kids are going to come back to? Because if the kids don't come back, we're not here. Find the money.
There's a lot of truth to necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yeah.
The little example I gave you about where I came in on the scene in Richardson, where we had 172 nearing obsolete facilities, and we were being forced by who? The big corporations, the railways. We had to either put up or shut up and get out of the way. Did the owners like it? No, they didn't like it. Did anybody in the system like it? No, they didn't like it. Was it necessary? Absolutely, it was necessary. Sometimes somebody's got to give you a 2x4 along the side of the head and say, grow up, smarten up, get in the game, or get out of the way. And if you don't do that, you're going to fall behind, and then you're going to be wringing your hands and saying, what all happened? What all happened is you didn't move. You didn't listen. You didn't react. You didn't think forward.
I keep pushing you guys because I'm going, I get it. If you were running Canada as an enterprise, we'd have a cover in the port in Vancouver, and we'd have a tunnel, and we wouldn't have a bridge that swings up and down. And I get that. What advice can you give to Canada that we can act upon the mentality and approach that you apply to your businesses to the benefit of all Canadians, not just your shareholders?
Get realistic, rally around a doable, practical, incremental plan, speak positively about it, be sure of your facts, get involved in the dialogue, right? I mean, we didn't sit around and wait to say, I wonder if the government's going to give us a hand on this vision we have for Richardson. We said, what are the issues? What are the opportunities? How do we mitigate the risks and take advantage of the opportunities in a material and sustainable way? Can we do it while keeping our principles in place? Ethical conduct, being concerned about the communities in which we do business, being concerned for our employees and our employees' safety is paramount. All of those principles, and that our word is our bond.
I think the joy of chaos is there's a lot of people that fall into the pit of chaos and stay there, right? The winners in the game actually put the ladder and start climbing. If you have good ideas, one thing is you have to repeat yourself, right? They say on average, you have to repeat yourself 7 times for a child to understand. My wife would say it's 100 times for me to understand. Well, everybody get on the same page of where we're climbing, and let's repeat ourselves to the government, because 90% of what we want is the same. I would argue this isn't just food, right? Energy, critical minerals, water. Anyone know anyone in the world that wants those things? We got them. Let's make sure all those industries find a way to have a seat at the table so the message is getting repeated every single day in Ottawa, and find the good people. I've been here for 2 days. I've met with lots of great people in government that want to do the same thing I do, and they want to see radical change. They want to know what the steps in the ladder we want are. Well, we have to tell them. Opportunities in agriculture, right? Volatility is an opportunity. Commodity prices, inputs, machinery, fixed costs. Yeah, but that creates volatility. Volatility creates opportunity, right? Second is leadership. One of our big issues in agriculture is that for 20 years, we told everybody, don't go into agriculture. We don't have too many good academics in agriculture that age. We don't have too many good consultants. Most of the CEOs are either over 65 and looking for some people in the middle. Like, we have a leadership void. And part of that means is that mentorship normally doesn't happen on a 25-year gap, but it's going to have to. 2030 is when the baby boomers hit the bottom age of 66. So scale better be good, because we are going to consolidate, right? We're going to build the ladder together, and we're going to get those pieces right.
I have no idea why they picked these two people for the panel. I mean, they lack ideas and passion. I just want to wrap up and say thank you both. And what I'm going to take away from, and there's some real consistent themes, this incrementality, that, it's a wonderful thing to have a moonshot, but you got to put the ladder up and you got to start climbing. I think that if we start applying some of the mentality and learning from our successful companies who have found a way through chaos and volatility to turn that into opportunity, and if we can bottle that, and I think if we can share that as an industry, I think we can have a combination of two things. We can have 10 pies that look really tantalizing, but we can start creating the ovens to bake them in. So I appreciate both of you for coming out. I think they deserve an incredible round of applause.
When we return, Lisa Ashton will join us. She's the agricultural policy lead at RBC Thought Leadership. And I wanted to get RBC's perspective on where Canada sits in the global agricultural economy. And she delivers on that. What I also found out is she was born and raised on a farm, so her context makes it even more real. Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Food does mean the world to each of us and to all of us. Some of us have the privilege that food can be something we explore, learn about new cultures, test our creativity in the kitchen, dine and enjoy the creativity of a master chef. But for many people in Canada and around the world, each day they're dealing with food insecurity. And Canada can play a role in changing it. We can become a superpower in food. But to do so, we really need to support our farmers. And so I want to give a big shout out to Farm Credit Canada, the University of Guelph, and RBC for putting together the Foundations in Agricultural Management. An online course, it's free, but it gives people that work in the agricultural sector the knowledge and confidence to make a lifetime of better informed decisions. To learn about business strategy and planning and farm management, succession planning, and financial fundamentals. So here's to the University of Guelph, FCC, and RBC. And here's to making Canada a superpower in agriculture. This food means the world to you, to me, and to RBC.
One thing we have to change as Canadians is we're too goddamn humble. You want to talk about Americans? They won't even throw out their college t-shirt. They believe in what they believe in, to the point that sometimes they're arrogant. But you have to be crazy to be an entrepreneur. I'm sorry. You do. Our biggest success story of humbleness is that we built Tim Hortons so that we could go for coffee to make bets on who we hope to see fail next.
Many of you know that I often end my show by bringing on somebody from RBC. And more often than not, it extends beyond banking to the role organizations can play in helping individuals, corporations, communities, even Canada get to where it needs, wants, and deserves to go. Joining me today is Lisa Ashton. She's the agricultural policy lead at RBC Thought Leadership. And Lisa, it's fantastic to have you on the show for the first time.
Yes, thank you for having me, Tony.
Tell me a little bit about what you're doing as the agricultural policy lead, and why is agriculture something that really RBC's focusing a lot of attention on?
My role provides the opportunity to spearhead our agricultural research from most topical issues like trade and tariffs, but also important issues including climate and policy as well. So really have an opportunity to flex those research muscles, but complementary to that, engage with stakeholders across Canada to understand what issues are most important to them, and work together to drive action, because we're not only a think tank, but we're also a do tank. So
I want to talk to you a little bit about the conference in February that this show was taped at. One of the core themes is that Canada can become a superpower in agriculture. The quality of our food, the efficacy, moving up from a commodity to value added, all of these things can play into this North Star. Is it possible that as a country, we can play that role in terms of providing the food that the world so desperately needs?
I would actually argue that Canada is already a powerhouse, superpower in agriculture and agri-food production, but also export. Over the last 20 years, Canada has actually lost some market share when you look at global agri-food exports, falling from 5th place in the early 2000s to 7th place today, with risk of falling to 9th place. We did some scenario analysis and believe under a high growth scenario, Canada could actually add $44 billion within the next 10 years. So there is certainly a North Star to move towards. I think there's a lot that needs to happen domestically, a lot that needs to happen in terms of our trade growth and diversification approach.
What's happened? Why have we kind of gone from 5th place in danger of moving to 9th place?
Emerging economies such as Brazil and Argentina are biting up some key categories that traditionally are very important to Canada. So oil seeds, grains, and meats. That's one key challenge that Canada faces. It is somewhat in a way kind of dulling its competitive edge relative to some of our traditional competitors like Australia, for example, who is really taking an aggressive leadership approach in terms of accessing what we're calling the growth markets. So markets that you would expect to see high GDP and high population growth over the next 10 years. And one key market is South and Southeast Asia. Those key markets certainly have a lot of opportunity. And if we don't take advantage of them, we risk falling behind even further.
And what stopped us from doing it today? Because when I was talking to both Curt and Kristjan, they said part of the issue is not so much our ability to grow, it's our ability to be a reliable exporter.
Transportation infrastructure is a key, I guess, linchpin in terms of our growth. We've heard lots of discussion, I think, between Curt and Kristjan around the Port of Vancouver. When we compared ourselves to other key agri-food exporters, including Brazil, Australia, and the US, we're behind all of them in terms of our turnaround time. And there's key challenges that slow that down for us in terms of getting product to market fast, such as rules around loading grain onto ships when it rains. I think the other element is also being a little bit more aggressive in how we are exploring and delivering on trade diversification. Canada has roughly 15 free trade agreements that gives us access to more than 2/3 of the global economy. So that's a lot of opportunity that's already on Canada's plate that it can be taking more advantage of, including within the European Union through the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and even some of our bilateral agreements with Ukraine, Chile, Colombia. We have access to all those markets. So taking a more aggressive approach to enter those markets and deliver our products to them is a key opportunity.
Talk to me about technology, regenerative farming, some of the moves that are being made on the chessboard to not only maybe drive efficiency, but the efficacy of food. And how does that play into Canada in terms of our position globally?
We are very fortunate to have a significant amount of natural resources from water to land, a very efficient production system. So when we looked at Canada's agricultural total factor productivity, so basically how efficient are you using your inputs relative to your outputs, we exceed the OECD average. I think it's important to note that we can't be productive if we don't have healthy soils and we don't have resilient ecosystems. So RBC works very closely with some of our corporate partners and even Kristjan Hebert, who you were interviewing, to help scale the adoption and access to climate smart practices. And we do that through one of our climate action alliances.
Tell me a little bit, just quickly before we finish, on your background and why it must be somewhat full circle that you're back in, but this time from a thought leadership.
So originally from a grains and oilseeds farm in southwestern Ontario. I think like most farm kids, when I was 16 or 17, I couldn't wait to get off the farm and kind of explore the world on my own. But through my degrees and career, I found myself back in agriculture, and I think more curious than ever to learn about this sector and to help push ideas forward that can improve its growth and prosperity.
I'm spending a lot of time helping youth find their path in life. A lot of them seem to dismiss agriculture as a career. I have to believe that a career in agriculture has got to be something that's incredibly rewarding, purposeful, has nothing but creativity and innovation as part of it.
That is a missed opportunity, that agriculture is not kind of top of mind for many young people that are determining kind of what they want to do for their career, because it is such an evolving and growing space. There's lots of exciting technology applications. So generative AI has a role from on-farm efficiency all the way through the value chain. There's a lot of diverse opportunities. So for example, I'm technically a researcher, but I say I work in the agricultural sector. There's opportunities in marketing, communication, engineering, and it is really an exciting field and also a leading sector for Canada. So a place for you to really grow your career with the number of different avenues that can be taken.
I really want to do more shows on why food means the world to all of us and why Canadian food means the world to the world. So I really appreciate you joining me in Chatter That Matters.
Thank you, Tony. Happy to join anytime.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.